Hey guys, this is Tammy Jesus. Back for another insightful interview with Insight.Teens. In case you don't know, Insight.Teens is a career development resource created by Teens for Teens. And what we try to do here is get teenagers and young adults exposed to a variety of fields so they can have a better idea of what they'd like to pursue in the future. Today, I'm so excited to introduce the first episode of our college life series where we will take a deep dive into the lives of college students and tips for high school students attending college in the future. Today, I have two very special guests here with me today. I'd like to thank you both so much for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, without further ado, let's get right into the questions. So, my first question for you guys today is what college did you attend and what was your major?
I can go first. So my name is Bidemi. I'm a chemical engineering major. I'm actually graduating this May. I attended Prairie View A&M University, and what else? I think that's it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Odero Sakwe. I graduated college December 2019, right before the pandemic. I went to University of Texas at Arlington. It's about 20 minutes from Dallas. I graduated a general engineering degree, and that's it. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we have two engineers. So, what made you guys decide on your major in the first place?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I think for me, it was just more of like I've always been someone that was like problem solving. I've always loved to kind of figure out how things work. So when it came to choosing my major, I knew that engineering was for me from the start, but I really didn't know what engineering to go for. So when I started like weighing the various options between chemical and I think it was industrial, I noticed that I've always loved chemistry. I've always loved to, kind of manufacture things that kind of see how drugs, cosmetics, things like that. So that's kind of what pushed me to go for chemical engineering.
For me, I could relate to what you just said. As far as on my own end, kind of math, I kind of followed math and physics. I just kind of like followed those trends. So for me, I knew it was engineering, just like you. But I think the thing is almost like med school, kind of figuring out what you want to specialize in, right? And sometimes you don't really get to make that decision before you enter college, right? But there's this idea and this notion out there that you have to make that decision, right? But I just knew it was engineering, and I started off with computer engineering. Then, after my first internship with Panasonic Automotive, I realized quickly, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be a computer engineer because I just kind of saw the computer engineers that worked there and I saw what their work life was like, and I just knew it wasn't it. So I had to kind of like do another soul search, and that's when I found industrial engineering actually. And I loved everything about industrial engineering because for the longest, I always looked at it from the standpoint where like a lot of managers that managed engineering projects weren't like engineering, didn't have engineering background. So for me, I just kind of loved what industrial engineering was, and that's how I kind of like focused on that right before I graduated.
All right, that's great to hear. Just as a follow-up question to that, that's very related. Was there any particular like class or teacher in high school that really inspired you to go into that particular field or pursue that kind of subject in college?
Yeah, for me, I guess, I mean, I was really good at biology, so you would think that I would have gone for medicine. But I guess it's also the fact that like my parents are engineers, and I feel like just being around that for me was kind of influential to go the engineering path. And I just also loving to, problem solve and loving math. I would say maybe math was a subject I would say that really pushed me to want to go in the engineering route because I've always been, pretty good at math and calculus and pre-calc and things like that. Yeah.
For me, a little bit of kind of extended family, and my physics teacher in high school in Nigeria. So kind of my extended family, my uncle, he was in electrical engineering. He did electrical engineering, but however, it wasn't about even like where what he was working or doing. they did this project at a point where it was like an inverter, right? So they built an inverter for us, and they actually gave it to my mom to use, right? And we never owned a generator, but would actually like, and the inverter was like noiseless. Right, so I remember as a kid thinking that was like a miracle because it's like, wait, what kind of generator is this that doesn't even make noise, right? So, but it was just kind of seeing him build that with him. I think it was like two of them, right? Uncle Kingsley. Yeah, so it's like both of them, they just built that. So for me, I saw that and I was like, man, I just want to like be able to create things by myself just based off of actual real life problems. And my physics teacher was just he made physics problems like sound practical and enjoyable. So I always wondered and always tried to relate problems with, okay, being able to break it down to the nitty-gritty, right? Like big formulas, how do you like break them down? So for me, kind of those two people that played a key role for me. Yeah.
All right, that's so interesting to hear, and I'd also just like to note that I personally struggle with both biology and physics. So I really admire you both for your aptitude for those things. But yeah, I think it's really true that I think that's really interesting that you talk about like seeing other people make things and create things really inspired you to go into that because I think that's really important when you're committing your life to that you really enjoy doing that. So thank you for talking about that. All right. My next question for both of you is what made you gravitate to the college that you ended up
Yeah, so for me, I feel like being an HBCU, I've already heard because I used to go to University of Houston before I transferred. So I heard about the opportunities that were there, for people of color. And yeah, that was really my main reason, for transferring in terms of opportunities, in terms of jobs, scholarships, research programs, just a lot for people of color. So that was my main, driving force in transferring. And yeah, I've loved it so far. So
Mine is actually a little bit of the opposite. I was actually going to Albany State University in Georgia because my family lives in Georgia and is a HBCU. But however, as at that time, I think 2014, 2013-ish, engineering is very different in Georgia at that time. It was Georgia Tech, UGA, it was
yeah,
just the big schools. So the thing is, when you look at the traffic that they get on an annual basis from international and I mean Georgia Tech is like was the number four, number three engineering school in the nation at that point. So the traffic was huge. So what they did was they will have the other universities kind of have like a 2x2 program. So at the
okay.
end of my 2x2 program, they weren't certain about me transferring. So honestly, I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna wait and just kind of keep waiting around. So I just started shopping myself around to other schools. And honestly, UTA was not something I had in mind, right? UTA just happened to kind of fall into my criteria, right? Because I was gonna leave Georgia, so that was gonna be out of state tuition. So in my head, I had that in mind, like, okay, like wherever it is, we'll have to have an engineering program, but not just that, be kind of, you know, not too expensive because out of state tuition gets ridiculous. So UTA just kind of like fell into that bucket list, right? And that's kind of like how UTA just happened to be that school, and it was great.
All right, I'm not sure if one of you could speak to this more than I know since Bidemi mentioned that she did go to an HBCU. I'm really interested in this, and I'm wondering if any of our audience that are also Black, um, what would you say are like the pros and cons of attending an HBCU? Because I know that's a very like complicated thing to or decision to make at times, and I know there's a lot of things you have to weigh. So, what would you say personally are the benefits and maybe the cost?
Yeah, personally, I feel like in terms of first of all, you have one-on-one, I would say mentorship with your professors, where it's like you can easily just go to your professor and just tell them like you don't understand, and they can actually help you. And I feel like compared to at U of H where it was like I don't think any professor really knew me by name. So I feel like it's like you have that one-on-one relationship where they could even write you a recommendation letter for scholarships, for grad school, because they know you on like one-on-one. They've experienced you in their class. Something else I would say is just the opportunities, the plethora of opportunities that you're exposed to, whereas like jobs. I remember like when I first moved, it was like lots of jobs were like coming my way, internships and things like that, scholarships. But yeah, I would just say even the community, like I feel like you have this, because you're in a school where everyone looks like you, so you have this community where like you can study with people. I don't know, life is just better. But in terms of cons, I would say it's not as organized compared to PWIs. And also I feel like I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I just think not organized. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, also like I feel like as an international student, so I came here as an international student, I feel like a PW was the University of Houston was more understanding of like what to do, the things that are needed, for international students compared to, Purview. So yeah, I feel those were the only two cons I would say I didn't enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of pros, cons, very relevant to what you just mentioned. I'll start from cons, because the pros is a lot more, honestly, but the few cons that are there, and I think that's what you're just talking about is, lack of resource, right? They're just special. They're things that need like special focus and resource that HBCUs are still lacking and behind. And it's not that it's their fault, right? It's just because of the way, the education system is set up, right? And I think what you're going to see in the next couple of years is that would gradually turn around in a very fast pace, right? Just due to everything that's happened recently. But I'll just say the resource, I think you were specifically focusing on internalization and their curriculum. And it's very true, right? Like you will see more, PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions. You will see that they have a lot more bucket of resources, right, to kind of specialize in, whether it's study abroad programs, whether it's being able to accommodate international students when they come to kind of help that transition from a cultural standpoint, right? Because there is that cultural, like that need, like it's almost kind of like, if you want to call it a cultural jet lag that happens when, people do transition. But I'll say from a con standpoint, that's really what you have. And kind of also in the name of, under that umbrella of resources, like, like some programs might not necessarily be there or might not necessarily be as developed as they need to, extracurricular activities, high school students getting, like, if you could compare, sometimes even if you look at like a high school student that might be maybe in sports or something, the type of scholarship that PWIs give away compared to the scholarships that, HBCUs give away. Now, that's not the HBCU's fault. That's all resource allocation from a higher perspective. Then, from a pro standpoint, I mean, it's just that community. When you think about it, right? I mean, everything just feels different. When I actually, so I told you I transferred. Actually, when I transferred, I became an alpha at UT Arlington. But honestly, I was my interest was from my HBCU that I went to, and it's like when you do see that, that sense of community, you see there's just a different level of connection that you have with a lot of things, and I think the thing about it is HBCUs are not just for Black people. That's just the crazy part, right? But however, it's just a community where it kind of helps kind of have an even playing field for everybody to be able to kind of excel in their own way. You talked about class teacher relationship. It's definitely a different types of, like, I don't know why it's that way, honestly, right? But just at HBCUs is just different, right? Your teachers know you by first name, they know you by last name, and they're able to kind of figure out ways to, cater to your own learning pattern, right? Because sometimes it's not that PWIs can't do it, but you're looking at a larger population of students, right? Like HBCUs just normally have a closer class, probably 25 to 50, PWIs, you could have up to 150 in a class, right? And that just, I mean, it's not even the teacher's fault at that time. It's just so many students to be able to kind of, develop that relationship. So if you do go to a PWI, my advice would be to you have to kind of like make that extra effort, right, to be able to develop that same type of relationship. But yeah.
I think both of what you guys said is really important, and I'll definitely take it to heart because I feel like personally, community is something that I've realized is very important in my education. I switched from a predominantly white school to one that was very mixed in race in my high school years, and I noticed how much of an effect that had on me, what I was able to do in that school environment. And so I think the community aspect and being accepted by the school body, and also like you talked about, teacher and student relations is something that is really important to me. I think our audience will really appreciate hearing that. That's something that's definitely should be considered when we're thinking about attending HBCUs. So thank you for that. All right, my next question for you guys is a little bit more of a fun one, but how good is the food at your school? On a scale of 1 to 10, because I hear a lot of different things about food when it comes to colleges. So I would personally like to know, what would you rate your food at your school?
I feel like for me, I didn't really eat on campus that much. I feel like because I lived off campus, so I wouldn't really say I know much about it. But I would say like the one time I went there, it was good. It was like a 7. Like it was good food. They had eggs. They had eggs. They had biscuits. What else did they have? Chicken. It was good. It was pretty decent food, but I hardly eat on campus. So I wouldn't really know like what else is like what other options they might have. But the one I had the one time I went there was pretty decent.
So I lived on campus for 1 semester, so it wasn't the best, right? I will tell you that you had like the it depends on the day, really. Right? Certain days are great, certain days are not. Certain days might be close to an 8.5, certain days might be closer to a 2.5. So you just have to kind of fill it out and you have to get your own schedule. Now the good thing is there are normally like like other companies like a Chick-fil-A might be on your campus or a Star, just different, or even like there's some cuisines that might be on campus. I know we had like a couple of dope Chinese spots on campus. We have some Indian cuisines on campus too. So, I mean, you just have to fill it out, right? Nobody, a lot of times, unless like you live on campus, that's where you like depend on food. Like, I lived on campus for 1 semester, my freshman year, and until I graduated, I was off campus after that. So I cooked a lot. So maybe learn how to cook, sharpen your Indomie skills, just figure it out.
I think from that, I'll definitely start cooking more and learning that skill. Because I know personally, at least I go to a boarding school, so we actually have to eat food on campus, and it is terrible. So we don't have kitchens in our dorms, but hopefully when I get to college, I'll start learning how to cook. So thank you for that. That was very helpful. So my next question is kind of switching the gears a little bit into the college application process. So what tips do you have for high school students who are applying to college either this year or in the future? Just general tips.
Yeah, I can start. Something for me, I feel like it's important is applying to scholarships early. So a lot of people actually wait till their senior year to not even like apply, but like to gather scholarships. I think from your junior year in high school, it's a good time to start gathering scholarships that you want to apply for in your senior year. There are also scholarships that you can apply in your junior year. So I would say yes, start applying early. I actually even have a scholarship platform that I'm creating called Schoolist app. Check it out. But yeah, like definitely start applying. Like that's very important because a lot of people think that, I can wait and then maybe I'll get, but a lot of scholarships like close up early. So if you didn't apply early, you might lose your chances and then you'd have to pay out of pocket. like Odara said, how he had to pay out of state tuition, because sometimes you might want to go to a school not in your state, and so you definitely need scholarships for that. So definitely apply early. That's something I would advise.
I mean, I'll actually just compare scholarships and college application to like internships and full-time jobs, right? Because it's almost like a one-to-one, comparison. You want to start early. I'll actually take it a step earlier than what you just talked about, because honestly, it starts with the SAT. So you want to start practicing for that early, right? Like you mentioned scholarships junior year, so that means SAT freshman year, right? You should have at least your first score by then, just to kind of fill it out, right? It mustn't be that, and I think that's the great thing about SATs is you could take it as many times as you want, and you decide what score you use, right? So therefore, just you know, okay, the practice lessons are great, but start taking it, right? Start timing yourself, start seeing how you're doing with the words, the vocabulary, of course. There's a lot of those, so. I'll say just preparation, preparation. I will also kind of put some emphasis on, that decision as far as what your career is, right? It's not a race to make that decision, right? It's not a race to make that decision, right? Like this idea that you just have to figure it out and already kind of like know it and, have your head held high, preaching, oh, I'm gonna beat this. No, there actually is no race. The most important thing is when you make that decision, knowing in your hearts of hearts that that's the decision that fits you and your life and who you are. So take your time in figuring that out and actually like walking through that idea of who that is. Talk to people that are doing it. Talk to students that are in that class, or in college doing that, right? Talk to, of course, your family. But as we all know, sometimes that could be a trap. So just, listen to yourself and trust yourself, trust your instincts more than anything before you make that decision for college, career, major, all that stuff, But definitely also practice, practice, practice for your SATs because it's like your GCAT for med school. So just get that one tightened up, and the sky's the limit.
All right. I'd like to say thank you guys very much, firstly, for that advice. I am a junior in high school, so I'm kind of, trying to figure that stuff out. And I definitely agree with you with starting to practice for the SAT early, because I think taking that test earlier on really helped me to have some time and some flexibility. So to anyone else watching, preparation is key. So keep on preparing. And thank you so much for the scholarship advice. I didn't actually think about that, so I'll definitely be trying to get on that as soon as possible. So the next question I have for you is, what was the most difficult part about being a college student, and how were you able to overcome it?
Let me see. I would say more of like, I guess when I was in high school, like I really didn't know that like you needed to study, study more. Like I would just go to class, learn, go back home and think like, yeah, I can pass. And I was passing with that, strategy, like just to go to class, learn, pour it out in the exam. But when I got to college, after I failed my first exam, I think for me it was like, no, you can't continue like this, where it's just okay, go to class, learn, and come back and think you know it. You actually have to take time during the weekend or even during the week or after a class and self-study. So I think that really affected me my first semester for sure of college, because I was going in with this mentality that you can just, I don't even know that you're like, I'm so smart enough to, pass any class without studying. But that definitely changed like my second semester. I think you definitely should study, study after your classes, study with groups, because it's very important, mostly in college. College is not high school. A lot of people think, yes, I was A student in high school, I'm going to be an A student in college. That it doesn't work that way. If you don't work hard, if you don't study, you're not going to pass, like even if you think you remember stuff, like I think you definitely need to study what you've learned, read the textbook on your own. Because sometimes I feel like something I also do is I just depend on what the professor says, and I don't want to go back to my and like study on my own. Like I think you definitely in college need to do a lot of studying on your own. But yeah.
Ooh, well, I think mine's it's a little bit of that. Yeah, I know we talked about out of state tuition, so I did a lot of self-funded in college, if you want to call it that. So I worked jobs. I worked like two, three jobs at some point. I was a valet. I used to be a tutor. Then I used to also then I kind of like it was my school's extension of kind of like if you want to call it mentoring high school kids. So I'll do that on the weekdays too. So I kept jobs, just so that way I could like be able to pay stuff for myself and not to depend on my family. I'm that type of person, not really ask for help all the time. I just like to know that I have my own stuff coming in. So that was one. Another one, which you mentioned is, like group studying, studying in groups are so important. I promise you, it's so important. It helps. Somebody in that group heard something you didn't hear in class. I promise. Someone heard something you didn't hear in class, and and it's just that collaborative effort and being able to collaborate, like you mentioned, there's this sense of independence that we kind of develop through high school. I, me.
Yeah.
Nah, that will evaporate really quickly. Like literally, especially if you're like in science, your labs. Listen, if you can find older students that already took that class and you can get your hands in their lab exercise note, just do that. Like, because normally you have like a good idea of your classes, right? So it helps you also in networking with people off like outside of class, right? So that way you're not just like restricted with networking with just your classmates and your grade, but now you have, okay, if you see a sophomore, if you're a freshman and you see a sophomore or a junior in, let's say, a biology major as well, like now you can be like, hey, do you take that biology 101 lab, please? Like, do you have one? They might not have theirs, but I promise you they know someone that still keeps theirs. Everybody knows that kind of person. So just those little things will help you develop that. But I will say those are the two main things, right? Of course, I would say another realistic one is distractions, right? Like there's distractions in college. It's a real thing. Like so your time management, like I have this thing written on my whiteboard till today, like time management and self-management. So you have to like be able to manage your own self, know what your priorities are. You have to be able to define that and actually kind of like internalize that, know your why you're in college, because that will kind of help you, navigate through those distractions because they are there. I'm not gonna tell you, oh, this is what I did, go walk my path. Nah, everybody has their own path. So once you define your why, and you're able to stick with it, like you'll be able to navigate through those distractions whenever they come. But yeah.
All right, I think that's great and awesome advice for both me and everyone listening. I would say personally, for the study groups thing, I found that it was really hard for me to go to other people in high school, at least for help, just because it's kind of hard to let go of that pride, and also admitting to yourself that, oh, I need help, and so that was something that I really struggled with. But I think something I've learned over time is that everyone really has something to offer and everyone is skilled at different things. So asking classmates for help, even just in one subject, everyone kind of knows how to do different things better than you. It was really helpful and it's something that I definitely don't regret at all. So thank you very much. All right, so that is my last question for both of you today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate what both of you had to say, and I hope our audience has as well. I think that some things that especially stood out to me was that you don't have to race to choose a career, and that you should really deliberate on that decision because it is something you're committing to. And even though you can change your mind later on, there's no race to do it. So really deciding what you're passionate about is something that's important. And as well as I think both of your points about being prepared and starting to get organized for college and even in college is very important for everyone, not just high school students, for even people in college who need to kind of get their lives together, just keeping their eyes on the goal and committing to that. So thanks once again for joining me in this interview and sharing such insightful tips. I hope to see you at another interview soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, and we hope we made sense and everything you said. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much, Timmy. This was really great, and it's really great to have people like you that have a passion to kind of, bring things like this to a larger table and to a larger audience. So I feel very honored to be part of this, and nice meeting you too. I bet Demi.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a
You
great day.
too.
Bye bye.
All right, guys, we want to hear what you thought of today's interview, so make sure to follow, like, and comment down below. You know the drill. Follow us on Instagram, and we also have our Facebook page at Inside.Teen, so make sure to follow us there as well. And lastly, we just launched our new website at InsideTeens.com, so make sure to go check it out and watch all of our past interviews and other fun content. Thanks for watching today's interview. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of the first season of our college life series. Make sure to stay tuned for more interviews and more insight. See you next time.